What should the Charlotte Hornets do with the 2 first-round draft picks? Rod Boone had some hot takes of the Charlotte Observer. We'll discuss that. We'll also talk about the most important questions for at least now GM Mitch Kupchak. He's scheduled to speak with media later today, so we'll ask the most important questions all today as well on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's the Locked On Hornets podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every single day. Always appreciate you hopping on with us and making us your first listen. We'd like to thank today's sponsor of Locked On Hornets, Sakara Nutrition. Sakara is a wellness company anchored in food as medicine on a mission to nourish. Go to sakara.com/lockedon20 or enter code LOCKEDON20 for 20% off at checkout. I'm Walker Mail. I've covered Charlotte sports for a variety of different publications, and that's Doug Branson, the founder of the pod. We were just joking. Once you get into the Locked On Hornets podcast, you then circulate the planet that is Locked On Hornets, and sometimes gravity will bring you back. Doug is back. He's better than ever. We're on YouTube. We're growing every single day. We have YouTube comments to get to that talk about Doug, that talk about some interesting things. I thought about just ruining the tease, but I'm not going to do that. I almost did it. But you have to join us in the third segment to hear some of the comments from YouTube, because a lot of them are just crazy. A lot of them are mean. A lot of them are funny too, though. So we're going to get to the funny ones. And we're going to do that later on in today's show. Are you ready? We've got kind of a surprising content-filled day on Locked On Hornets with Mitch Kupchak about to speak. So we're going to get to a variety of questions there. I'm ready to do this one today.
Yeah, and it starts with Rod Boone of the Charlotte Observer coming out with a little spicy hot sausage himself in this column that he wrote. The Hornets have
sausage,
two.
All right.
Yeah, that's what it is.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Well, I was going to read the title, but then even though I'm signed into Charlotte Observer, it's trying to get me to sign up again, I guess. The Hornets have 2 first-round picks and need to trade both of them. Here's why. So bold take by Rod Boone. He's on the record. He's on the record, folks. Be right for the Charlotte Observer. Wants these 2 picks, number 13 and number 15, traded. He writes, if they're thinking big, that should change soon, a.k.a. not doing anything, not trading, not making any moves. The Hornets are in a unique position, and it's imperative they take full advantage. These kind of opportunities don't come along very often. I do want to read this, one of the last paragraphs here. You can go read the whole thing on the Charlotte Observer. Deandre Ayton or Rudy Gobert could give them a huge boost, and it's looking like both of them may very well be on their way out of their respective cities, meaning they likely can be had for the right price. And as long as it's within reason, the Hornets should be one of the suitors at the front of the line. Dangle those 2 picks and use them as a starting point. Engage the Suns and or Jazz. Make it happen.
The Boone bomb, if you will.
That's a Booney bomb. Booney spicy hot sausage.
I like how it's just make it happen regardless of what it's going to take. And you can use the 2 first-round picks as a starting point. But Doug, we've talked about this quite a bit. This is 13 and 15. Yeah, multiple first-round picks, but 13 and 15, not going to get it done. On top, you have to, if you're going to get Rudy Gobert or DeAndre Ayton, you start with the 2 first-round picks. Then you include Miles Bridges, maybe PJ Washington in addition, and then another first-round pick, and then you start to probably get to some negotiating power. But they're going to laugh at you if you really try to start the negotiation point at 13 and 15 for either of those guys. That does absolutely nothing for Phoenix. It doesn't do anything for Utah either. It does allow them to get off a $40 million a year contract and start with 2 first-round picks. They might want to rebuild. Phoenix, they're not going to want to rebuild. Utah might. So it would do more for the Jazz, but they're still not going to trade Rudy Gobert for just 13 and 15. And then you have to consider, is it worth it to get rid of that? Another first-round pick, Miles Bridges, which we both kind of feel like has to be included in any deal, at least for DeAndre Ayton. So make it happen. I like this. I like the spicy sausage. I like all of that too.
Spicy hot sausage.
Yeah. Right. Like the temperature, spice, it's all very hot. I just don't know how realistic this is going to be. Now, DeAndre Ayton, I certainly do want to inquire about him, though. My thing about Rudy Gobert, it's a lot of money. He's older. DeAndre Ayton, I'd be willing to give up a lot for. That's one you go all in. What's not to like for a 23-year-old, crazy skilled big guy that has touch? There's a reason, Luka Doncic should have been the number 1 overall pick. Duh, right? But DeAndre Ayton is still an awesome player. He's still really good. And I would give up a lot to go after DeAndre.
And I think all of that makes sense. I think there may be a few arguments that he hasn't really shown the level of production that would necessitate like a huge deal yet. You would really be betting on potential instead of betting on results that were already there. But really, the odds makers don't even have the Hornets in contention for a possible DeAndre trade. And this was actually mentioned in Booney's article. It's our friends at BetOnline. They've got the odds on the next team that DeAndre.
That should be their new jingle. That was great.
Thanks.
Cut that clip out, send it to them. I'm sure that's going to up a contract between both of us.
They've got the odds. It's BetOnline. Okay, so if you're not watching, I will read these out. They've got the Pistons as the leader in the clubhouse at +100, the Magic at +200, Spurs, Pacers, Blazers, Thunder, Rockets, Bulls, all behind them. No mention of the Hornets. Walker, any theories on why BetOnline doesn't believe the Hornets will be in contention for a DeAndre Ayton trade? Because the need is there.
I think my theory just starts with the teams that are listed having high draft picks all across the board. The Magic have the all pick. So that's going to be enticing. And I think if you take Chet Holmgren for Phoenix to replace a DeAndre Ayton, then you don't have to pay DeAndre all that money. You get a unique shot blocker that also has, can also switch on the perimeter. We know how good of a 3-point shooter Chet was at Gonzaga. So that could be the thinking there with the Orlando Magic. San Antonio, they have a high draft pick too. All of these teams do. And then you get to Chicago. But Chicago has the ability to get rid of a star or two, in a trade, like a Zach LaVine, like a Nikola Vucevic, or Vucevic. Like, you have a couple of different which one? It's Vucevic. It's Vucevic,
yeah. But I like you throwing in there the alternative. If you want to say it, if you want to say Vucevic, go ahead.
No, I'm going to go with the right one. I'm going to go with Nikola Vucevic. But yeah, you have a couple of different stars to deal and have the money kind of match up better in any kind of sign and trade with DeAndre. Those are my theories why Charlotte would fall out, because they have 13. Miles as a sign and trade, I would think would have put them, I guess, within the top 7 or so that we're looking at now. But I think those are some of the reasons why those teams are listed.
Here's my theory, and I think this perfectly kind of gets us to these questions that will be on the minds of fans and media members as they prepare to ask questions to Mitch Kupchak today. I think what you said makes sense, and I think it's part of it. But I think the reason the Hornets aren't on here is because Mitch Kupchak, as general manager, has not done anything in terms of trades. Now, draft picks, great, made a few little small trades, but there's no evidence that he can make the big deal, and this would be a big deal. We're talking about multiple picks, multiple players, and a star in the making in DeAndre Ayton, right? So there's no evidence, and I think that's why the Hornets are out. And I think that should be the first question to Mitch Kupchak: is the big move coming?
Yeah, like the thing about Mitch Kupchak that I want to ask him too. We'll get to some of these questions that are most important in the next segment, but one of the questions is how much do you need to acquire talent through veterans now, considering where you are at this stage? Because we know Mitch he's outright told us that we need to have talent. Like, that's the question he'll actually answer. My question, if I went there and said, Mitch, why won't you do something? He's not going to answer that. He'll answer your question. Yeah, well, that's right. We need to run it through the translator to Mitch Kupchak and then hopefully have him answer that. Let's get to
That's a different machine. That's the opposite of a hot take. You need the hot take machine for this kind of programming. You need an opposite machine. You need a professional radio guy machine, a PRG, to make the question happen.
All right.
To make a question that Mitch Kupchak will actually answer.
Speaking of the hot take machine, Doug, I was watching First Take yesterday. I imagine you were too, right? Doggy was on it.
I missed yesterday's, but I typically tune in.
It was unbelievable. Even for them, they were in some type of rare form where we have clips of Stephen A. Smith on the hot take machine. You need to put Stephen A. Smith's takes to get it going. That's what it runs off, right? That is the gas, the fuel to the hot take machine. Mad Dog would send that thing into overdrive, and you could go to yesterday's show and just get any clip you want. You can go to any point, 2 hours. You could go to 20 seconds in. You could go to an hour and 30 seconds in, whatever. And you could get some type of clip, use it as fuel, and the hot take machine would be up and running for us to just spit hot fire.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't even use the hot take machine today because it's out of fuel. So I guess I got to take a trip to the gas station and put some doggy fuel in there.
That's the nuclear plant I thought you needed to go to, the radioactive, just getting one of those things.
What do you think First Take is?
Well, that's where it is, right?
Yeah.
You just need to go to where Homer Simpson works, get that green bar on the back that he walks out with, put that in the hot take machine, and then we're going to be up and running. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. We are going to ask the most important questions for Mitch Kupchak's media availability taking place this afternoon. It's not going to be taking place too much longer after this show is over and done with, so we might as well get everybody primed to at least kind of express what we want to see from Mitch Kupchak later on. Not before, though, we talk about Truebill. It's the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, you don't want, or maybe you simply just forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple, though. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in just one tap. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions, so you do not have to. Don't fall for those scams anymore. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now, Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. And while you're doing that, maybe you're hungry, you know what to do at this point. Make sure you go into the box of Built Bars and just grab one of those energy bars to get you an energy boost. And that way you don't have to eat a ton of calories while also tasting basically what is better than a candy bar. Every one of those Built Bars are covered in 100% chocolate. They range around 130 to 150 calories. They're also high in protein. They're high in fiber. They're low in sugar. The flavors are great, whether they're a limited time flavor, kind of like the birthday cake. They also have brownie batter puffs. Yes, brownie batter puffs not only taste good because, brownie batter is going to taste amazing, but they're healthy for you. That's right. They're healthy for you, too. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15. Get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. We ask the most important questions for Mitch Kupchak coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
Mitch Kupchak has outright told us that they probably got a little ahead of themselves with this playoff mandated season. In that interview that he had with Sam Farber, he's like, we probably were a little too froggy at the beginning and we felt really good. That's fine.
Did he say froggy? Did he really drop a froggy?
I said froggy. All
right.
He didn't say that, quote unquote. But I have to imagine he was feeling that in his soul.
I would be really surprised if Mitch Kupchak threw in a froggy.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, Walker, I know we have a lot to get to left. I think we might have to bump Mason Plumlee for like the second straight show. He's becoming like our Matt Damon.
Get out of here, Mason Plumlee. Get out of here.
I swear we're going to get to him because it's to me, it's actually a fascinating subject, Mason Plumlee and his season with the Charlotte Hornets this year. But I have to put this tweet on the show. This is great. So this, for those that are listening, this is a tweet by Hornets Lead at Hornets Lead on Twitter. They said PJ Washington held opponents to 42% shooting when he was the closest defender. This was the fifth lowest percentage of all players who defended 200 or more shots. This was quote tweeted by PJ Washington with just two simple words: clamp God.
Yes. Yes. God, I love it. Please, all of it, more tweets. This is something PJ is embracing, Doug. I don't know if you've seen what he's been doing on Twitter within the last couple of weeks or so, but you speak about being froggy. PJ Washington is being froggy on the twitter.com. So Brian Geisinger put out this compilation of videos where PJ was guarding stars, right? Pascal Siakam, Joel Embiid, Bam Adebayo, who was used in that picture. And there were a bunch of videos of him doing an excellent job of just staying with those guys. I quote tweeted that okay, and talked about even the point guards being among that list of stars. Remember, guarding Kyrie Irving, guarding Kyle Lowry, just outright picking up 1 through 5. You know, when players say, I can guard 1 through 5 and feel comfortable doing it, man, you see hard evidence. Yes, when, you know, guys are getting switched and in the pick and roll, and that's kind of a defensive scheme, right? But it's because you feel comfortable with PJ guarding everybody. Anyway, PJ Washington, he quote tweeted Brian Geisinger's tweet, you know, praising PJ for his defense. He he retweeted it. He retweeted my tweet that said, yeah, I know I'm a part of the PJ fan club, but this is what he does, right? He is looking himself up on Twitter, has to be, because nobody tagged him, and finding some of these defensive praises for him.
Yep.
And now he's putting him out there. I love it, though, because he's embracing all of it, and it's exactly what we need him to do.
That's exactly right. Why is this tweet important? Why is a tweet where PJ Washington says clamp God important to the Charlotte Hornets next season? It's because they need more players to I think publicly and privately take pride in their defensive. Now you have to do it to take pride in it. And he did it. And now he's showing it. It's easy to retweet a SportsCenter top 10 dunk and say, yeah, look at me. Look at what I did. That's easy. But what PJ is doing here, he put in the work defensively, and now he's showing out, and you have to love that. Anyway, let's talk about these questions for Mitch Kupchak. He's doing a press conference today, finally, and I'm ready to hear from him.
Well, the interesting question and the number one question he has to be asked is, are you still
employed?
Are you the general manager?
Are you a guest? Are you a guest of the Charlotte Hornets? What if he comes out? What if he just comes out and sits with the press? I'm like, I'm just here for the show.
What if they open up his Zoom box and for all the media it says, you know, Walker Mail, Locked On Hornets, it says, yeah, whatever, Will Kunkel, Queen City News, and then for his box it says Mitch Kupchak, advisor in the front office of the Charlotte Hornets. I want to see what does his title say. What's going to happen there? I don't even know. And I wonder if that's why it's been so long since he's spoken, for them to have to try to figure this out. I think we're not going to get any coaching news. That's going to be another important question that he's going to be asked. And then he's going to say, we're still in the process. That's how it's going to play out later on. But when we ask him about his general manager position, whether he still holds it, I have to imagine there is an answer at least somewhere close on the horizon, or else why would you be doing this media availability right now?
But I think a question worth asking is, what are your priorities when you're looking for this head coach? Because it's a question that he answered, before. It's something he's talked about.
There are ways to get around the obvious questions to see what he's true. We've talked about it a million times.
He's not going to talk about candidates. He's not going to talk about name. I mean, he may, but it's unlikely that he talks about names or who they're leaning towards or anything like that. But I want to know, what are they really prioritizing? Are they prioritizing defense? Are they prioritizing somebody that's going to really turn LaMelo Ball into the superstar we all, or not turn, but, help facilitate? People get mad when I...
Are you indicating that he's not now?
I know. What people get upset with is that if I attribute anyone else to LaMelo's success except for LaMelo, what I'm saying is it's easier to become a superstar when you have a coach that is going to help facilitate that. It's more difficult when that coach is working against you. So are they going to look at a D'Antoni and say, wow, that seems like the perfect fit for LaMelo, or do they want somebody more on the defensive mindset?
Well, look, the way I want it kind of asked, and hopefully I have some kind of say in this if I get called on, and we'll just see exactly what takes place. But I want to ask, are you going to be making the picks in this upcoming NBA draft? Are you going to be the head decision maker for this free agency period? And then if he starts to backpedal on that, because remember, the other thing we're not kind of asking here, Doug, is the coach might just have that power. That actually might be taking place for the Mike D'Antoni to be making those personnel decisions. And if Mike D'Antoni, he's going to have to lean a lot on the scouts. I don't know how much Mike D'Antoni has been going to the film room and watching tape of Johnny Davis this year. So hopefully that there's going to be a lot of leaning on the scouts, but that is going to be something within maybe the responsibility of the new head coach, which has been reported, which has been something we've kind of talked about. Yeah, like, Mitch, are you going to be making this pick? Your contract reportedly ended at the end of 4 years. You've had 4 drafts now. Are you going to be making this selection going into next season? And
I hope the answer is yes, because
what's that answer? Yeah,
I think he's done a fantastic job with the draft so far. I hope he can trade these picks, but I mean, I think he's done. If he does end up picking, I think he's done a fantastic job in that. Hey, by the way, speaking of the draft, the Locked On NBA podcast will have live coverage of the NBA draft. So follow the Locked On NBA podcast on YouTube to get some live coverage. We'll be on there. One or both of us are going to be on there when the Hornets, whether they trade, whether they make a pick, we'll be on there to discuss what happens. And there are lots of questions for the draft. I mean, you have some in here, talent compared to need at this point in the process. I think it's a huge question because they have that glaring need at center. Do they try to address that in the draft or elsewhere?
So it'll go an extremely different way if Mitch Kupchak doesn't give us a definitive answer on whether he's the GM or not. If that's one of the first questions answered, and then he's like, he's non-committal. He says, I don't know who's going to make this pick. All right, we're off here and we're driving in a different lane. But if he says, yes, I'm going to be the next general manager, we might ask how the process plays out. But then we actually get to some of the decisions that have to be made by whoever's in power. Once we get to the draft, some of the questions that I have, Doug, are, talent compared to need at this point. He's always been very open about, I'm going to get the best player available because it's been a rebuilding process. But you've also seen him kind of transition to, well, now he can start to look more towards position need, but, we still want to get as much talent as we can. Now center it's shooting a flare telling you, please pay attention to me. And is that going to be in play at 13, at 15, trading those for a free agent? So I want to ask just his philosophy on how much talent is needed for this point in the process compared to what it has been in years past.
I think it's a fantastic question. And obviously there are questions about the future for Miles Bridges. Is that the goal to bring him back? How about PJ Washington? He's on the books, but contract extension, the player that we're not going to get to, Mason Plumlee, they have a decision to make with his contract because it's only partially guaranteed if they keep him past, I believe it's June 21st. It's 10 days prior to the moratorium. So they have a decision to make there. They've got some smaller players that they have to make decisions on too. Cody Martin, Jalen McDaniels, a lot of player personnel decisions, Walker.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Gordon Hayward, the questions you're not going to get an answer on is Gordon Hayward too, because he is under contract for the next 2 years. He might give you something on Miles. It's our goal to bring him back. We want to do as much as possible to bring him back, but who knows in the NBA? Pete, you might get something on PJ because he talked a little bit about the extension process with Miles last year. So that might happen with PJ. I can't imagine you're going to get much with Gordon Hayward. I think he'll say, we're going to explore every opportunity to make this team better going forward. And that might be the speculation you need to say, yep, they're definitely going to move on from Gordon, whatever. But he's under contract for 2 years. I don't know how much you're going to get there. Cody Martin, Jalen McDaniels, also interesting pieces, and not as important as some of the other guys we talked about, but still hold important positions on this roster. Last thing before we move on, Doug, I do want to, I do want to get what his thought process was on the development of the rookies in this past year's draft class, because we saw some flashes from JT Thor. I think we all like him as a project, but there still wasn't, for sure, more Thor. But we didn't get a lot of substantial playing time for him. We know everything that took place with James Bouknight. Kai Jones didn't get any playing time, really, because he was always viewed as a project. So did this year play out like you thought it would when you made those selections is something I'd also like to hear his opinion on.
It's the difficult part when you sort of take the macro view of last season, is that you didn't get that development of young players and you got blown out of the play-in. Like, it's a little easier to swallow, right? That you don't see Bouknight, that you don't see Kai Jones, that you don't see JT Thor if the Hornets made the playoffs. Because when you're a team that's trying to make the playoffs, you're going to lean on your veterans. My big question, and I don't think I would get a decent answer to this, but my question that I have for Mitch Kupchak is, how much pressure are you feeling to field a playoff level roster jump ball game one? That's what I want to know.
Yeah,
how much pressure are you feeling at this point?
After 4 drafts, after, I guess, the 4 free agency periods. Yeah. I think he might even answer that too, in some kind of roundabout way.
And have you ever felt froggy? How froggy are you feeling? Also, is winning 50 games as important to you as it is to me? That's what
Doug Branson, not me. You, Doug Branson, the co-host of Locked On Hornets, is what you're.
Well, I won't be asking it. So if you could ask that and say yes, I would like you to ask it, saying, is winning 50 games as important to you as it is to Doug Branson of the Locked On Hornets podcast? Yes, please.
Yeah.
Ask that.
Absolutely. No, I will do that. The only thing that we have to hope for is that they call on me. And if they call on me, Doug, but maybe if they don't, then I can't ask it. That's the only thing that would hold me back in that situation. All right.
You gotta make sure, we gotta go back all the way to grade school. Ooh, me.
Imagine I would actively not pick on that person, whoever was doing that in the Zoom chat.
And then you gotta get, if one arm doesn't work, then you throw both arms. Hey, me.
Do I go the Taylor Swift route and hold up a sign in the window saying, please pick me, and try to communicate across the street? Please just stay right there. Mitch, pay attention. All right. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. We're going to finish up some of our thoughts on maybe Mitch Kupchak, some of the questions, but also we have some YouTube comments to get to. So we're going to address some of those in the next segment. But of course, not before we talk about another sponsor for this Locked On Hornets podcast. We really appreciate them. It's Sakara, who is also the title sponsor for us as well today. Feeling your best starts with what you eat. So Sakara helps you live a healthy, balanced lifestyle and truly enjoy it with delicious, plant-rich, transformational nutrition that builds a foundation for living in your best body. Now is the time to seek wellness, joy, and an abundant areas of your life, starting with what you eat. With Sakara, you get nutrient-dense meals, snacks, and supplements that nourish your body without ever sacrificing taste or quality. True radiance starts on your plate, made with high-quality organic ingredients. Sakara's plant-rich, transformational nutrition programs are expertly designed to deliver real results, from reduced bloat and eased digestion to clear skin and boosted energy and moods as well. Sakara has plant-rich ingredients helping boost your energy, support your digestion, curb your sugar cravings as well. You get your skin glowing, plus it's also delivered right to your door, ready to eat, so it's easy to do. Right now, Sakara is offering our listeners 20% off their first order when they go to sakara.com/lockedon20, or you can enter code LOCKEDON20 at checkout. That's Sakara, SAKARA.com/lockedon20 to get 20% off your first order. Sakara.com/lockedon20. YouTube comments coming up next. Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
We need Mitch Kupchak to throw a party like Sam Presti. Can he party like Presti? And Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, but who are you going to get to perform? Because remember, they got Nas.
They did get Nas. Man, who is Mitch Kupchak getting to that party to perform? Can we get Nelly?
No.
Master P.
Yeah,
I hate you right now.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Perhaps something that is also really important we didn't address in the second segment for Mitch Kupchak. How much did he support the decision to fire Joe? It was reported that Michael Jordan was the guy that was most behind that. And at the end of the day, MJ gets 100% of the say if he wants it because he's the owner. And it was reported that he was kind of behind that more so because of lack of accountability, maybe for off the court stuff. Maybe it was for, something that was, James Borrego had kind of a short leash for on the court stuff. So I don't know if that was taking place, but I want to hear what Mitch Kupchak has to say about the firing of James Borrego, because Doug, I'm not so sure he would have done it had the 100% of the say been up to him.
I would mostly agree with that. I don't know that I'm 100% on that, but I'm definitely more than 50-50 on that. And
yeah, I don't know.
I don't think
that's not some declaration from me. It's legitimately a question. Like I would
I don't
know.
I don't think that Kupchak and Borrego had a bad relationship, but I said this many times last season. You could definitely sense some passive aggressiveness, some frustration from Borrego when he talked about his roster, when he talked about having to do with the ingredients he had been given, So I definitely sense that. All I'll say to the listeners and the viewers out there is you better tune in tomorrow, because we're going to have plenty of clips, all the answers from the Mitch Kupchak conference. We'll be commenting on them, analyzing them, trying to read between the lines, pick it apart, that kind of thing.
It'll be interesting to hear from Mitch Kupchak later on today because there's a lot to ask him, given some of the changes and some of the changes that are going to have to take place in the future. All right, let's get to some of the YouTube. I like this one. It's maybe the only one we're going to get to.
Hold on. Before we get there, I just have to say that on the last video that we put up, yesterday's show, it set a record. 155 comments. Wow, you guys are doing. You people are doing work.
Oh, man. Well, and a lot of them were replies. Somebody would come in. I think that's what has to happen, too. There has to be, maybe all the comments are usually hot takes. You have to come in with a hot take comment, and then you see the replies come in after that. And that was the success, and that was the formula to getting to 150. Plus, we're getting some bots now, so a lot more these days. That's also contributing. Either way, yeah, we have a couple to talk about. And here's the first one. So here's David's comment on YouTube. Hey, Doug, what you think of Ball, Book Night, Miles, Montrez, Ayton, backups, Martin, PJ, McDaniel, Kai Jones, Mark Williams, Thor, period in between every single one of those names. He wants to know what you think of every single one of those players and or factors.
No problem. I will answer it. And like Michael Jordan, I'll do it. I will answer these takes blindfolded.
Sweet.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Just like our fearless owner did on the free throw shot. I'll do this blindfolded. Or
that
eyes
Fender
closed.
hat is over the eyes of Doug Branson for those listening and not watching. Please spit out all of those takes on each one.
Well, hit me one at a time.
Ball.
Superstar if he really wants it. Please don't go. Time for him to be number one. D'Antoni.
James Bouknight.
New coach, new chance. Love the spirit. Don't love the defense.
Okay. All right. How about Miles Bridges?
He's got a Jimmy Butler game.
Whoa. That's huge.
Does he have a Jimmy Butler heart?
That's the question. That is so the question. What about Montrez?
Never happy. Grass is always greener. Sometimes journeymen are journeymen for a reason.
Okay. What about
next one?
Yep, Deandre Ayton.
Yes, please. Ayton? More like Charlotte's been waiting on a center like him. Next.
I got to let that one simmer for a second. What about the backups, Doug?
Key to 50 wins. Next.
Cody Martin.
Bench wrench material. Next.
PJ Washington.
Quiet X factor. But, hey, take the 3/4 court shot already with time expiring. Come on, next.
He's not quiet on Twitter. What about Jalen McDaniels?
Bench Swiss Army knife material. Next.
Kai Jones.
G League hero.
Yep.
Worth more in a trade? More players should color their hair. Next.
Mark Williams.
80s all-star name, right? like Mark Williams is an all-star in 1983. I don't know about 2022 or 2023, but definitely 1983 Mark Williams is an all-star. High floor, safe pick. No one gets mad, but does anyone get hyped? Next.
I do. We'll talk about it later. What about JT Thor to finish us off?
You are, if you've been listening, if you've been watching for a long time, you already know what it is. I'm going to back up the mic because it's about to get loud. More Thor! That's all.
And that'll be it for us, too. We're going to end on that. Thanks for joining us on the Locked On Hornets podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA, from the first jump ball of the play-in tournament to the last possession of the finals. Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all 30 teams. We'll get to some YouTube comments. Go ahead. You wanted to say something real quickly?
I was just saying I'm sweating. I need a drink.
You do. You deserve
a cigarette,
one.
maybe.
Excellent job. Hat over the eyes. You weren't looking at any script. You nailed it. I was looking at what you should be saying at that time. You did an excellent job. People need to know that. We will also be doing our best to cover what Mitch Kupchak has to say today. We'll be covering that tomorrow on the Locked On Hornets podcast. So make sure you make us your first listen once again to get all of that insight. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.